35 minutes in this class left, which is okay, we can cover some basic stuff. How many people here have music theory experience? How many people don't really have a lot of music theory experience? Okay, a couple, all right. I don't really know what levels we're all at, so we should just cover a few things. For the people who don't know any music theory, do you know what sharps and flats are? Okay, so we don't need to go over that. And naturals. So does everybody here know about chord spelling? How to spell a chord?
Spell a chord?
Spell, like how to make a chord.
Oh, yeah.
How to make a chord.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know that it's all made up of thirds. Yeah? Okay. Just to cover that for some of those who don't know, I'm going to pretend that this can be a staff. Hey, that's not bad. So, okay, there's a staff. And let's make it a treble clef. So we know it's a staff, we know it's the treble clef. Say we're going to build a C triad. Everybody knows how to do that? C. Okay, great. We'll just, I'm just breezing through this in case people don't know, okay? C, E, G, and that's made up of a major third and a minor third. Does everybody know that? So we'll put minor and major, okay? Now if we want to make this major 7 chord, what do we do? Add B, okay? And what's the distance between the G and the B? It's a major third, exactly. It's a major third. All right, now if we want to make that what they call a barbershop 7, which is actually a dominant 7 chord. So let's just put that as a major. That's how I make major 7 chord. Now we want to make a dominant 7 chord. What do we do? Which 7? Yeah, B flat. Okay, so then that gives us a minor and a major, a minor and a major triad. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Now, if we flat the third, we get a minor 7 chord. Exactly. Sorry to put you through this if you already know, it's kind of a drag, but you know, whatever. We're doing it. Okay, so then we have a minor triad, a major interval, and then a minor third. So it's minor, major, minor. Okay, now diminished chords, let's just cover diminished chords. Okay. Okay, all minor thirds, right?
Yes.
So that makes this a E flat, that makes that a
G flat.
B flat? Or G flat, sorry.
G
G
flat.
flat. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong line. That makes that a G flat, and that makes that a
Double.
double flat. Now let's just look at a couple of variations here that you don't find in barbershop very much. What if I make a sharp 5? Now, the sharp 5 against the major 7 is a pretty interesting chord combination. It's a really nice chord, actually. But, so that usually is taken away in barbershop. And the third is usually doubled in chords. If there's an augmented chord, and usually there's only an augmented chord if it's in the melody. And it needs to be augmented. So that's just a major chord with the fifth raised. Now, there's also, you don't find it very often, there is a minor, and a major, which gives us a diminished triad, but a major interval at the end of the 7th. You don't generally find that. That's called a minor 7 flat 5 in jazz terms. It's called a minor 7 flat 5, which can be sort of misdiagnosed as a major 9 chord in the barbershop world. Let's look at this chord. Here we have major 6. Yeah, it's a major 6. That should keep that major 6. And there you've got the A. Now, you can also take this chord, start it on the A, then you can put C, E, and G. Right? A, C, E, G.
A minor.
A minor 7. So when you're analyzing your music, and you come across, something that looks like these two are, in cahoots, or in cahoots, that's a Canadian thing, you wouldn't understand. They're sammanlägg, yeah.
Together.
Yeah.
Huh?
Swedish.
Yeah. Stash.
That's it.
Together.
Same, sammanlägg, tillsammans.
Tillsammans.
So, okay, so when you find this, the best way to do, any chord that you end up analyzing, always try to stack it in thirds, and you'll find out what the chord is. However, there is a small exception. If I say, let me see, if I have, let me see if I spell this in my head. Okay. Let me see. No, that's not really what I want to do. What is this chord if I spell this way?
E minor.
E minor 7.
Plus.
In the key of E, is B sharp? No. In the key of E, is G supposed to be sharp? Yes. So that makes it a minor, right? A minor 7. And in the key of E, what is D in relationship? It's a 7, right, exactly. So that becomes a minor 7 chord. Although, because the D, and now that's a little bit of a, when people see, oh right, the D is just natural, they automatically assume that it's a major chord for some reason, or a major 7 interval. It's actually a minor 7 interval. Now what if I put the C down here?
Major.
What kind of a 9? It's a major 9. What makes it a minor 9? Or a dominant 9, I should say.
E flat.
B.
In the key of C, D would be flat. In the key of C, if it's a D dominant 9, what is a dominant chord made up of? Of the major triad. Right? Yeah, okay. Right? So that would be a dominant, or a dominant 9 chord in the key of C. Now often, in barbershop, what they do in order to make a dominant 9 chord, the barbershop 9 chord, they take away the root. Right? And so sometimes it can be misleading. You can see that it's an E minor 7 flat 5, right? Didn't we talk about that minor 7 flat 5 over here?
Yeah.
So if you're stacking it up in thirds, you'll go, but wait a minute, in the key of E, E fits at the bottom. In the key of E, that's supposed to be sharp. And that's supposed to be natural. And that's supposed to be sharp in the key of E.
Is this very often in the barbershop?
All over the place. It's like weeds. It grows like a weed. And it's really, they call it the barbershop 9 chord, but really it is, I come from a jazz background, it is a minor 7 flat 5. It's just voiced in such a way that it rings. And so when they tell you in barbershop, that you can't ring a minor chord, you can say, really? You can ring a minor chord if you tune it properly. There are a lot of groups out there that sing songs that have a lot of dominant 7 chords and triads in them that are very strong for barbershop, and they don't quite tune them, but sometimes they'll get rewarded more than a group that might sing minor chords that tune them, just because the judges have this prejudice against minor chords. You just think they have a prejudice. So sometimes you'll see the minor 7 flat 5 or the dominant 9 chord spelled with the D, and then the E, and then the G, and then the B flat. I'm just using, and you'll try and stack this up. And you'll try every way to stack it up to make it be like a chord that makes sense to you, but the reality is it won't really make sense. It will be a minor 7 flat 5. Now, what happens if I put this A down here and I add a B flat up there?
A minor.
So in the key of A is C sharp. It should be. So let's make that a minor. In the key of A is E sharp. No. Okay. In the key of A is G sharp. Yes, it should be. So that makes that minor as well, a minor note. And is B flat supposed to be flat in the key of A? No, it's a flat 9. You never see flat 9. Never, almost never. But if you take the A away, then you've got C, E, G, B flat. You've just got a dominant 7. Yeah. So, I mean, that's, you know, these are some simple things, but it's the dominant 9 that's going to screw you up the most when you're doing your chord analysis. How much time do we have? Okay. The dominant 9 is probably going to mess you up the most when you're doing chord analysis. And the other thing that you can really do I mean, you might understand the theory, but being fast with the theory is something else again.
Yeah.
Being quick with it and understanding how it works is another thing. So we're gonna just draw some more lines here, put some more dots on the paper. La 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 la. And because we don't all have a piece of music to refer to, the same piece of music to refer to, we can't really do a lot of chord analysis, unfortunately. So we'll play some other fun games instead. Okay, now let's take, because it's easy, let's take the key of D. All right? And I think D is an easy key. All right, in the key of D, what?
F sharp.
F sharp, there we go. Okay, now if I want to make a a dominant 7 chord out of a D triad, what do I do?
C.
Add a C. No.
Just C.
That's right. That's right. See, it's that thing, right? So it's just a D dominant 7 chord. Pretty straightforward. Now, say we want to move. Oh, I should have drawn another staff. Anyway, let's, for sake of argument, say I want to move. That's the 5/7. Do we know what that means? You know what 5/7 means?
No.
Okay, I'll explain. All right, for every chord, say in the key of D, okay, the next chord would be based on E, okay? Now let's erase that. Let's pretend that is a major 7 chord, okay? And we'll call it 1. All right, it's a major 7 chord. Now in the key of D is E sharp, G, B, D? No, none of those are sharp. But what does this spell? In the key of E, should G be sharp? but it's not, so it's a minor third, right? So this makes this a minor 7. And we'll call that 2. Okay? Now we've got F, A, C, E in the key of D. Which of those are sharp? C. F and C. Which makes this a what is the distance between F sharp and A? It's minor third. Exactly. And the distance between A and C sharp is a major third, and we've already established up here, major, minor, major makes a major, minor. That makes that, the easy way to do this, if you're ever stuck, the easy way to do this is take away the sharps and lower everything else. Take away the sharps and lower the third. Does that make sense? Okay, let's try it. Okay? We've got F sharp, A, C sharp. If you make those natural, if you make all of this go down a half, those become natural, and that becomes a flat. So in the key of F, is A supposed to be flat?
Yes.
No, exactly. So if you're ever stuck and you forget how many sharps and flats are in everything, just move everything down a semitone, and you'll be able to go, oh, F doesn't have an A flat in it. So then you know, if you bump everything up again, that's a minor triad. Now, in relationship to F sharp, what is E? It's the dominant 7. So this is a minor 7 chord, yes. Minor 7 chord, and we'll call that 3. And then we move on to 4. I know this seems kind of remedial, but when you have to actually think about it, it's like, shit, what was that? Okay, so in the key of G, is B sharp or flat or natural? Is D sharp, flat, or natural? Is F sharp, flat, or natural? Right, but in this case it's natural. So what does that make that?
Without the sharp,
With a flat, with a natural F,
yes.
it's a
Dominant.
dominant 7, exactly. Yeah. Why is it natural?
It's still.
Oh, sorry.
It has to be the sharp.
Sorry, my bad. I'm thinking of absolutely nothing right now, except food. So what we've got there is a major 7. Thank you very much. I know you're not crazy, I am. All right, so now the next one is A, C, E, G. In the key of A, are any of those supposed to be sharp? C should be sharp, and G should be sharp, but they're not. So that lets us know that A with a minor third and a minor 7 is an A minor 7, right? In the key of D, right, should be major, right? So we'll put our little sharp there, and then what does that make it? Dominant 7, exactly. So that's a major, major minor 7. No, that's not what we want. We want Dom 7. And we're going to call this the 7, or the 5. I mean, sorry, it's a 5/7. We'll get back to it in a second. So that's a dominant 7 in the key of. Sorry, I'm kind of up to lunch right now. In the key of D, are any of these supposed to be sharp? F is supposed to be sharp. Now, if we go to B as our root, are any of these supposed to be sharp in the key of B? Almost everything's supposed to be sharp. B to D. and that's supposed to be sharp, but in this case, in the key of D, there is no D sharp, is there? So we take that away, and that makes it, what interval? Minor interval, exactly. And then here, that is supposed to be sharp, isn't it? In the key of D. So we've got a minor and a sharp there. What do we do with that information? It's a minor 7. Again, yet another minor 7. Okay? And then we have C, E. C, E, shoulder problem. B, okay, so here we go, C, E, G, B. In the key of D, is anything here supposed to be sharp or flat? Okay. Now, right, exactly, here is a problem. So C sharp to E to G, but if it's a minor, should the 5 be sharp or flat or natural? It should be sharp if this is going to be,
Not a D, so it's natural.
but this to the B to the C, the B to the C sharp is a minor 7. There's a whole tone between the B and the C sharp. So you've got actually what it is, it's a half diminished chord. Okay, and we call that the 7. All right, and then we're back at 1. Start right back at 1. 1, you like a dream come true. Okay. So we've got 1 through 7. Okay. Now, the theory gods have deemed that it is so, that the first chord is an Ionian chord. It's called Ionian, and it is based on 1. So they use Roman numerals to allocate each chord that you're singing in your music. So when you go through your music and you find that you're on a chord that is built on the 4th degree, you can put a little Roman numeral 4 underneath it. And then the quality of that chord, most likely, is going to be major 7. Most likely. Although it could be modified, and if it's modified, you have to use your stack to find out if it's going to be some other chord, so that you know in your chord progression what the role of that chord is really playing. Because it could be revoiced, like the major 6. Let's see. No, let's take another little example right here. Let's take C again. C. Okay, that is a major 6 chord, right? Now, what would make that a minor 7 chord?
The A.
Remember? Right there.
The E flat only.
It's an A.
Yeah. You see, if you build off of the A, you've got C, E, G, right? I mean, if you're in the key of C, we're talking about the key of C right now. So there's your C major 6 chord. Okay? Now we put this stack on top of here, and what does it spell? A minor 7. Right? So sometimes we're not sure, is that an A minor 7? Or is it a C major 6? So when we're going through our chord analysis, you can see if there's, some characteristics that play in here, or you can go through your circle of fifths and find out how it spirals around. Theoretically, yeah.
If you write it down like this, then it's a C. chord.
Yes, it is a C if you major six, yeah.
Otherwise,
Well, not necessarily, it depends on the voicings that you use. Say you want your bass to be here on the third, which is very rare, but if it's in passing, you might need it in passing to go from one chord to another chord,
okay.
and then you might write it like this, but it still might have the characteristics of this.
Yeah.
Or you could take the G down here.
Yeah.
You could put the 5 on the bottom, and it would still, if you stack it up, you're most likely, if you stack it up in thirds, that's what you're gonna end up with first. But you also just need to consider, is it a 6 chord?
Can I ask you something? The Barksdale songs, do they have particularly, what is a full chord in het Engels?
What's the sequence?
Order? Do they have,
Order.
do they have an order in the Roman notes?
Yeah,
Like
all
stars
music.
in
all music does. I mean, we could take a piece of music and analyze it, and it takes a little bit of time if you're not that quick at it. First, you want to identify what the chords are, and then you want to identify what role they play in the circle of fifths. So the most common is 5-1, 5-1. 5 is always going to be a dominant 7 chord in the music that we sing. 5 will always be dominant 7, 1 will always be dominant. And that's the resolution, and you can hear it when I sing it. Or you'll have 2 minor ba, 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 5, ba, 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 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 5. Does that make sense? No?
Not really.
Okay, ask me a question.
I started learning chords and I found it really, really difficult because I didn't know where to start, didn't know what to do. So I lost you about at the second chord on the top row.
This one? This one?
That one, yeah, that's
Okay.
where it happened.
All right, well, let's look at the theory behind it, okay? So, you've got a major chord, okay?
Mhm.
Let's first of all take the major scale, because it's important. What is the theory behind a major scale? The distance between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. What's that distance between a 1, 2? Is it a whole tone or a semitone? It's a tone. 2, 3, it's a whole tone. 3, 4, semitone, exactly. 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 1. Right. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So when I teach this, I always teach tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And people seem to remember it, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And that is the theory behind the major scale, right? So, if you want a major chord, you need the major chord to be made up of something that is tone, tone. So that means you are, in your scale, you are 1 and 3. Is your 1, 3, 5. Between 1 and 3, 2 tones equals a major third. So that equals a major third. This, between 3 and 5, or 3 and 5, sorry. No, I'm backwards. Blah, blah, blah. There's a tone chunky there, and then, thank you, I can't read my own writing. And then, thank you. Can you read that? I can't read that. Is a minor third. So then we know, if that's a triad, it's always, the major triad will always be made up of 1, 3, and 5, because it stacks up this way. Let's take the key of A. 1, 3, 5. It will always be that way. If you make that flat, this becomes a minor triad, and that becomes a major triad. Between 1 and 3 becomes a minor triad. Between 3 and 5 becomes a major triad. And that will always be a minor chord. Always. So, let's go through the theory. Major triad is made up of what? 1, 3, 5. Okay, minor triad is made up of 1, 3, flat 3, 5. Right, exactly. Augmented is made up of
1, 4,
3,
sharp
sharp 5. Right, okay. Now let's go to major 6. Major 6 chord is made up of 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. 1, 3, 5, 6, yes. You can always, if there's like two notes rubbing together, they're either the 7 and the 1, or the 5 and the 6. Generally, or in the case of the minor 9, or the major 9, it'll be the 9 and the 3. So it's going to be one, if it's two little notes rubbing up together, it's going to be dominant 9, a 7 chord of some description, or the major 6. Okay, now let's go to major 7. What's the theory there? 7. Right. Minor 7 is 1 what?
Flat.
3 flat.
1 flat 3,
5,
5, flat 7, minor 7, major
7.
7, dominant 7. Dominant 7 is made up of 5, flat 7. There you go. Oops, sorry, that's not what I meant. I meant dominant 9 is usually made up of
1, 5, 7.
Okay, now what do they usually take away in barbershop arranging?
1.
So 1. So it's really basically made up of 3. Oops, sorry, flat 7. 9, which plays the role of 2. Now in theory, the dominant 7 chord needs to have a root. In theory, it needs to have a root to be a true dominant 7 chord. Any extension beyond 1, like the 9, 11, 13, those are called extensions, and those need to have a 7 in it, in the chord, in order to be called an extension. But here we've taken away the 1, and for some reason, some beautiful reason, it sounds good. And so they call it the dominant 9, and you can hear you can hear it usually. The 1 becomes something that you kind of hear in your head.
It's asking for 1.
It's asking for the 1. Now the dominant 9 chord also in your music, when you're looking at your music, they usually have the 5 on the root for strength.
So the basses
The
are
5 is
singing
usually on the root.
Oh, the basses are singing.
Usually, not always, but usually they sing the 5 for strength.
And what is the other choice then? What the bassist can sing? The third?
Well, they could sing the 3rd, not very strong voicing.
Yeah.
They could, and it depends on the melody that you have in the chords that are coming before and after. If you have a nice bass line of da 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 da, something like this, you'll let it live on the 3. You might not want to linger on that chord when you're singing it, because it's not the strongest of voicings with the 3. But the 5 on the bottom, it sounds really nice. Let's just experiment, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you sing it 5? 5, 3, 7, somewhere there. So wait. You're on the 5, right? Right, keep singing loud. then I'm gonna add the root in. So can you hear that underneath it? Now sing it again. So now you've got to get used to, your ear has to get used to the sound of that thing. Boom, because it's very, very close to the minor seventh. Sing that again. Now sing it. Now major. Okay, so you can see it's like it's just a step away from being a minor seven chord. And so if you get your ear used to it, if you do some ear training and get used to hearing what each one of these chords sound like and in the different voicings, let's just really quickly.
Ja, bo absolutely remind you that as far as I know, the others will join you for the last session.
The last session, okay. I'll really quickly go through this.
5 minutes choice.
Okay, 5 minutes. Perfect, awesome.
Okay.
Okay, now what was I just about to tell you? I was about to tell you.
Oh, also.
Scheisse.
We are the dominant 9 at this moment.
Dominant 9, and then there's something else that popped in my head. Voicing. Right. Okay, let's just briefly do voicing. And this will be brief. Okay, well let's make it fun.
Whoa.
Okay, so let's take an F chord. Okay, so say we have bass on the root. Okay, now what if we put the baritone on the 7? What is this? G? No. What is this? E flat. That's right. That's your, because we're going to do a 5/7 chord. Okay. I should tell you what we're spelling. We're spelling a 5/7. Okay. Now, what do I want to do for the voicings on the upper half? C. I need a C and I need an A, right? So do I want to put them close together, or do I want to put like the C down here and the A up there?
Yeah.
If I put the C down here, let's just try it. Let's put the C down there and the A up there. So you've got your leads below your berries, which happens. Maybe not very strong for your leads in some ways, but let's just hear how that happens. So that's about an F. So who's going to be baritone? Baritone. Now sing it. Seems reasonable, right? What if you put the tenors on the C? Then you've got a nice tight voicing higher up, right? So let's put the tenors on the C, and so bass, or lead tenor, yeah, sing it. Okay, does that sound like a better voicing for ringability?
Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? So if you have it the other way around, what do you need to do to balance it? Say this is back down here on the C. How do you need to balance that chord? You need to lighten up the baritone and bring out the lead. So try bass. Lead. Tenor. now, what we need is, we need the leads then to sing a little on the high side, because they're the perfect fifth. Perfect fifth, perfect fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what we call a perfect fifth. It's a perfect interval, and it's the largest interval that we sing that is consonant. Consonant means major, not dissonant, which means basically minor. It's the largest interval that we sing. So when you're going through your music and you find like maybe the basses and the baritones are a fifth away, the baritones should sing higher in that chord. In the chord, not in the key, in the chord.
Yeah.
Okay?
Can they join you there?
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to get at is if this is the root,